Yo, what's going on, everybody? You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. With injury news coming down for the New York Knicks surrounding Mitchell Robinson, could Leon Rose and this ball club look to make a trade for a center? And could that guy be DeAndre Ayton? We're going to break that down on today's show. As we know, Mitchell Robinson could be out until January for the New York Knicks. Had surgery at the end of the playoffs last year on that stress fracture in his foot. It was the second time he had a stress fracture in this season. And now it sounds like he's not going to be able to play until earliest December and could be out until January. Ian Begley of SNY did a mailbag on his website, sny.com, and he answered a question about what are the Knicks going to do at the center position. And I thought what he had to say about DeAndre Ayton was pretty interesting. Here's the quote. I'd add DeAndre Ayton to the list because the Knicks have had interest in him and have done background work on him in the past. Ayton averaged 22.7 points and 12.5 rebounds, 3.6 offensive in 18 games played after the All-Star break last season. He shot 58% from the field during that stretch and has playoff and NBA Finals experience. I also want to add this quote from Ian Begley saying, I'm not saying here that the Knicks have spoken to the Blazers about Ayton, so please don't suggest that in aggregation that they have. So I'm not saying that Ian Begley has linked the New York Knicks to DeAndre Ayton, but he has said that they've done work on him in the past, and he is a player that they've talked about in the past. And he is a player that we've talked about on this channel a couple of different times. And I think if the New York Knicks are looking to make a blockbuster type of trade to add a center to this team, DeAndre Ayton is at the top of that list. And I don't hate the idea of making an all-in move for DeAndre Ayton, a true 7-footer, legit size, 250 pounds, still just 26 years old, and he's on a decent contract at about $35 million per year over the next 2 years. And I like what he does on the basketball floor when it comes to production from a production standpoint. Look, over the last 4 years, he's averaged more than 10 rebounds per game, giving him more than 14 points per night. He's also going to protect the rim at a decent level, and he's a very skilled offensive player. He can score from a lot of different spots on the court. He's an excellent roll man when working with guards in that pick and roll. And when he's around the basket, he's almost automatic. When he's out from 5 to 9 feet, he's got a nice little push shot. He can score with his back to the basket. He can also get it done in the mid-range. 151 shots last year from 15 to 19 feet. When you have him at the center position, all 5 players on the floor are a threat to score the basketball. And that is really what I want to see the Knicks get to. I'm not trying to disrespect Mitchell Robinson, but we know what he is on the offensive end, as well as the other centers on this roster. I'd love to see a 1-5 pick and roll with Brunson and DeAndre Ayton. That can work. Ayton can pop. Ayton can roll. You could feature him in the high post. He's an underrated passer, in my opinion. I think he changes the Knicks' offensive dynamic. Just the ability to put 5 guys on the floor, maybe like an Ayton, OG, Bridges, Hart, DiVincenzo, or Brunson. Every person on that floor is a threat to make a positive play for their team when the basketball is in their hands. But I do have some concerns about DeAndre Ayton. He's not the perfect trade target. First thing I'm always worried about is the rumors that you heard coming out of Phoenix. He didn't love basketball. He didn't love competing. He didn't want to work out. Then he got traded to Portland, and all those things kind of went away, and I wonder if that's more so to do with the fact that the Portland Trail Blazers are a team that's competing for ping-pong balls in a lottery position more than winning games. But I do like the player, and I like the upside, and I do think it makes some sense for the Knicks. You look at his contract, as we like to do on this show, because thanks to the new CBA, you can't talk trades unless you bring up a contract. And DeAndre Ayton, he is on the books until the 2026 summer. So he's on the books this year for $32 million. Next year, he's on the books this year for $34 million. Next year at $35 million. He'd be a free agent at the end of the 2026 season. With him making $34 million, the only way a trade could happen is if the New York Knicks include Julius Randle in that trade. And a lot of people are going to be like, man, you know what? I'm not trading Julius Randle for DeAndre Ayton. And I totally get that. I'm not so sure I would either, because Randle is 100% a better basketball player than Ayton. We know what Randle's done. Multi-time All-Star, multi-time All-NBA player. He's been the number 1 player on a team that was the number 4 seed and had home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. But the question you have to ask yourself, and the question that Leon Rose is asking himself and everyone else in that front office, is Julius Randle going to be a Knick long term. Randle could have put pen to paper to sign a contract extension at the beginning of August. Randle could have shut down all of the trade rumors already by signing a contract extension, because if Randle signs a contract extension today, he can't be traded for 6 months. And 6 months from now is well past the NBA trade deadline. If Randle wants to be here, he'll sign his name on the dotted line. Maybe there's a handshake agreement behind closed doors that we don't know about, but I know this. Knicks are going to try to make a move for a center, especially with the injury concerns reemerging with Mitchell Robinson. The question is, could it be DeAndre Ayton, a name that Ian Begley thinks at least should be added to the list? We also have a list of other names that Ian Begley talked about in that mailbag. We're going to break those down, but I want to hear from you first. Pick a player and factor in the uncertain future of Julius Randle. Who do you want? Randle, Ayton, sound off for me. Look, I think a starting lineup of this would be pretty damn good. Brunson, Chenzo, Bridges, Anunoby, and Ayton. I think your defensive floor raises. I think your offensive versatility raises. I'm going to be honest with you. I think you're a better basketball team if this is your starting five with Josh Hart, Miles McBride, and Precious Achiuwa off the bench. You have more lineup versatility. You could do it in different ways on offenses. You could have multiple identities. You're bigger, and I just think you're more skilled throughout the lineup. I think I would make that trade. I think I would trade Julius Randle for DeAndre Ayton, because I know Ayton's going to be here for the long term, and I'm not so sure what the answer is with Randle being here long term. We got more New York Knicks center trade targets via SNY and that mailbag from Ian Begley. But first, I got to tell you guys about our t-shirt deal. If you go to chatsports.com/realknicks, you can get your Real One Knicks t-shirt today. We've got the blue piece. We've got the black piece. Get your shirt today. Chatsports.com/realknicks. Order it today. That way it can be here for game one against the Boston Celtics when we walk into the TD Garden and spoil ring night for the defending champions. Another name, of course, that Ian Begley brought up was Karl Anthony Towns. Not going to spend too much time on him. We know that Karl Anthony Towns is a name that is consistently being linked to the Knicks. I think it's someone name that we should all pay attention to, because where there is smoke, there is fire, and he is a part of the CAA Mafia. Another name that Begley mentioned was Robert Williams III. We've done multiple videos on him so far this summer on the channel. And look, if he was healthy, I think it'd be a great addition, because he's very versatile on defense. He's still young, and I think he would thrive in a Tom Thibodeau defense and system, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. This is what Begley added in that mailbag, saying, I'd put Robert Williams III on this list because Portland has two starting caliber centers in Williams and DeAndre Ayton, and they selected big man Donovan Clingan at number 7 in the 2024 NBA draft. So that's also another reason why DeAndre Ayton could be a player that could be going out of Portland. You drafted Clingan inside the lottery. Maybe you want to run a lineup of Clingan and Randle at that 4 spot. I think it could make some Clingan at the 5, Randle at the 4. Just something to think about going forward. Other names that Begley has mentioned in this write-up, he said the Knicks once had interest in Nick Richards, Gogo Patatse, Walker Kessler, Jonas Valanciunas, and Andre Drummond. I think when he mentioned Drummond, he talked about last year. He's now part of the Philadelphia 76ers. They gave him pretty decent amount of money at $5 million per year. I think they want him as the backup center for Embiid. I don't think they are interested in trading Andre Drummond. Another player to keep your eyes on, according to Ian Begley, is Nikola Vucevic, the offensively skilled big man from the Chicago Bulls. We've talked about him multiple times before. The Bulls are going for that youth movement, but he makes $20 million, and to get up to 20, you're going to have to give up some players you might not want to. A name we have not talked about on this channel that Begley brought up is Jakob Poeltl, and this is a guy that I'm keeping my ear to the streets on this one. I'm a fan of his game. He's not Isaiah Hartenstein, but he does a lot of things similar to what Hartenstein does on the floor. He's an underrated passer. He could score the ball, doesn't crash the boards nearly as much, but he is a big guy at 7'1", almost 250 pounds. He could be a starting center on a championship team, in my opinion. Another name is Isaiah Stewart. We spent a whole video talking about him. Check him out on the channel. That's why you subscribe. That's why you turn notifications on. Undersized at 6'8", but he makes up for it in length with a 7'4" wingspan. He shot almost 40% from 3. It's an interesting idea. I'm just not so sure what's going to have to be the outgoing package in a trade to make sure Stewart lands here. Also, Jalen Druen, a guy that's on the top of my list for centers to trade for. I think he could be the starting center of the future for the New York Knicks. Averaged 14 and 12 last year in his second year in the NBA. Still just 20 years old. Going to continue to get better and better. I just think that he should be someone that Detroit tries to keep around. Build around him and Cade Cunningham and see what you got. Look, the Knicks know they have to make a move, whether it's now, whether it's once the deadline in December passes, once you get to that February trade deadline. I believe the Knicks are going to make a trade for a center. Who is it, though? Who should it be? You decide. Name a center you want the Knicks to trade for. Give me a name of a big guy you want to see wearing New York across his chest this upcoming season. Make sure you are following me on social media. I'm on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. I'm on Instagram at @MarshallGreen_. Hit me up over there, and let's go Knicks.